Good evening, everyone. And I want to first start by saying thank you all for coming here tonight. And I want to say a special thank you to Lori and Jay Shree for setting this up through the International PTO. My name is Sam Fiera, and I work here at the Lawrence Township Public Schools. I am the supervisor of guidance and career programs. And the reason I'm here this evening is because Lori had asked me and our department if we wouldn't mind to come down and explain a little bit tonight about the college process, because a lot of times the college process is overwhelming to anyone, let alone anyone who may have or may not have a language barrier. So this is a special presentation just for you, and it's a lot of good information, and we hope that it answers a lot of your questions and your concerns. I'm not going to say that it still may not be overwhelming. It is. I have a high school child of my own who's getting ready to go to college, and I'm on Naviance, and you know, my mind is going crazy myself, and this is what I do, you know, for a living. So I can only imagine, you know, how it is for, you know, anyone else in the same situation. So there's going to be a lot of good information here tonight. We have Alexa Gonzalez is here. She's somewhere. There she is. She is one of our high school guidance counselors, and she has put together a wonderful presentation for you tonight. There's going to be plenty of time to answer a lot of questions. And if by any chance, and I believe there is a little yellow sheet that says it's going to be on TV. He gave it to me. What did I do with it? This is being recorded tonight. Okay, so if you see the cameras back there, it's being recorded. And if you would like to watch this again, like maybe you've missed some things and you want to review it, you can watch this program on LTPS TV. And you can find the schedule on our website at ltps.org. If you look on the TV link, it will tell you which is the program that you should watch of this, and it should be on within 1 to 2 weeks. So it's not going to be on right away. So in about 1 to 2 weeks, if you want to check in periodically to see if the video is on, you can do so. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to Mrs. Gonzalez. Let's give her a nice round of applause. Check that. We are going to turn the program over to Mrs. Nab first, and she's going to say a few words to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Nab. I'm a mom, a member of the PTO, and also a teacher of English as a second language here at the high school. And so my job is to tell you about the format of this presentation. So you've done the first part pretty well. If you want to move yourself, go ahead. And Ms. Gonzalez is going to give a section of the talk, and we're going to give some time and some space for you to ask questions at your table. And then when we return back as a group, if your group still has questions, tell us what they are, and Ms. Gonzalez will try to answer those before she moves on to the next segment. The yellow sheets that are at your table, the big sticky notes, those are for questions that you have at the end of the night that don't get answered. If you would give those to us, and you can stick them up there, and there's another place for questions too, because we'd like to be able to answer as many questions tonight as we can. So without any further ado this time, Ms. Gonzalez, who is our guidance counselor.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. My name is Alexa Gonzalez. I'm one of the school counselors here at the high school. Previous to me coming to Lawrence High School, I did college admissions work at the University of Pennsylvania, so I'm really lucky that I've been able to sit on both sides of the desk. So hopefully you will get a lot of good information tonight, you'll get your questions answered, and that you'll be able to leave here with a little bit less anxiety over the college admissions process. All right, how many of you feel a little bit like this right now? Or maybe if you're the parent of a student who's not in high school yet, maybe you have a middle schooler, maybe not so nervous about the college process, but just navigating high school in general. Anyone feel a little bit like this? Like there's a lot of confusion surrounding the process? Okay. Please know that you're not alone. All parents feel that way, whether or not they are from the United States or not. The college application process and high school in general has changed a lot over the last 20 years, a lot. And I can say that from experience. I grew up here, and the process itself has changed a great deal from when I applied to college 20 years ago. So you're not alone, all right? The process in the United States is unique, so if you're feeling some anxiety over not knowing what it's like, it's understandable. It is very different here than it is in other countries. I know in other countries, college admissions is strictly based on grades. In some other countries, it's strictly based on a test score. We have what a lot of college is called a holistic application process. I don't know if you've heard that word before, but most colleges in the United States say that they use a holistic application process, meaning that it's not just about grades and test scores, although that's part of it. So what we're going to go over today is what that process looks like, in addition to how to plan your high school, the academic program, so that your child is ready to be a competitive college applicant when that time comes. So this is just some of the objectives of tonight. I'm going to go over academic programming here at Lawrence High School, what that looks like, and you'll have a chance to ask questions about that. We'll go over, how to access Power School, the course of study, so that you can support your child in their academic programming. We'll talk about what it means to be ready for college and what that should look like for your high schooler. We're going to talk about some very USA-specific college information, things like early action, rolling admissions, a lot of language that might be unfamiliar to folks who, are not familiar with our process here. We're going to talk about Lawrence High School's college process and how we're here to support you. And like Ms. Knapp said, we're going to have lots of time for questions. We're going to break a couple of times during the presentation so you can talk to the folks at your table, come up with some questions, and then we'll have lots of time at the end to answer those questions. Okay, so we're going to start with something very basic, which some of you will probably already know about, but that's Power School. At Lawrence High School and at the middle school as well, every child is enrolled in our Power School program, and U.S. parents are invited to access what is going on in school, in their classrooms, through the parent portal. So I'm not sure if all of you are connected to the parent portal for Power School, but in the United States, parent involvement is very welcomed. We invite parents to be part of it. So if you don't have access, okay, so if you log into the Lawrence Township website and you go to Parents, and you come down here to Power School Parent Access, okay, you can come over here and proceed to the login page. And then you'll find instructions on how to create your parent access account. Okay, so you can access the account through your child's ID number. They have their own access. So if you don't know how to access, you can access through them. But if you prefer to have your own access and not have to rely on them changing the password on you, you can create your own account. If you have multiple kids in the district, you can link all of their accounts together so that you can just sign in, and then you'll have access to all of your child's grades, their schedule, all of their grades. You can click on the teachers' names and send emails straight to the teachers. That way there's open communication between you and school. You can check their attendance, if they've been tardy at all. All of that information is there for you at your fingertips, okay? And then it'll help you to support them if you are completely in the know with regard to how they're doing in their classes. So if you haven't set up your account, please do so. Okay, another great tool that we have and that we welcome you to connect to is the course of study. Do you guys know what the course of study is? No? Okay. So the course of study is a document that Mr. Fiera is holding up right now. We have the hard copies and guidance. Each of your kids at the high school is going to receive the 2016-17 copy when we do their course planning starting next week or in 2 weeks. But you can also access it online, okay? So in the course of study, you're going to find all of the information that you need to help your child plan for all of the courses that they're going to take through high school. Okay? There's a description of every single course that we have at the high school, the requirements or the prerequisites that we have for those specific courses. We also have a ton of information regarding graduation requirements, regarding athletic eligibility, option 2, which is how to do coursework or any type of academic, anything that you want to do academically. If you want to include it on your transcript, you have to go through the option 2 process. All of that information is in the course of study. So you can have a hard copy through guidance, or you can just access it through the Lawrence Township Public School website. Can you click on the course of study? So if you go to Lawrence Township Public Schools and go to Lawrence High School and then go to guidance, our website is full of great information regarding college planning, but you'll also find the course of study right there. So you can click on there and have all that information at your fingertips. Next week, no, first week of February, okay, all students at the high school are going to get some information about course planning. They're going to see a presentation because it's going to be on video in their classrooms. You're going to have access to that video as well, and then we're asking that students go back home and plan for their courses for next year. So we really welcome you to be part of that process. We want you to help them choose their courses for next year. If you have questions at all about what those courses should look like, please contact your child's counselor. We're here to help you. And then we'll be meeting with the rising freshmen, so the current 8th graders, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students between February and April to do their course planning for next year, okay? And part of what helps kids be competitive college applicants and ready for college is making sure that they choose good courses while they're here in high school. So this is definitely a part of the process. Okay, so these are our graduation requirements, okay? This is really important information. This was developed not only through the New Jersey Department of Education, but also through our Board of Education. So this is what every student in Lawrence High School needs to graduate from high school. So this is minimum credits. Okay, so to graduate from Lawrence High School, every child needs 4 years of English, 3 credits or 3 years of social studies. Just so you know, 1 credit is a full year course, okay? So 4 years of English, 3 years of social studies, 3 years of science, 3 years of math, 1 year of a world language, a half a credit of economics, 1 credit of PE and health or driver's ed for every year that they're in school. Then as far as elective goes, they also need 1 year of a fine or performing art, 1 year of a 21st century or life skill, which are things like technology, business, things of that nature, and then additional credits, okay? If your child is currently a senior, they need 26 credits to graduate. The requirements have changed, however, so if your child is any younger than that, if they're in the class of 2017 and over, then they're going to need 27 credits to graduate. Okay, so these are minimum requirements to graduate. Additional requirements for graduation are attendance and then also achieving a qualifying grade on one of the exams, okay? I know a difference between other countries and the United States is this attendance requirement, and attendance is a huge piece of high school. You need to be here. Every single day every day that we're in school counts, and every single day that you miss school counts against you, and you can lose credit for a course if you exceed those attendance requirements. So for a full year course, so for example, if your child is in biology or algebra 2, those are full year courses, they're only allowed to miss that class 15 times. Not only, that's a lot, but that's the maximum amount. If your child exceeds that, they lose credit for the course, and they could potentially have to repeat it depending on the situation. For a half-year course like economics, they're only allowed 8 misses, okay, 8 attendance points. For a course like PE, which meets 3/4 of the year, they're allowed 12. And for a course like health or driver's ed that only meets for a quarter, they're allowed 4. If they exceed that, again, they lose credit, and that can affect their graduation status. Also, all students have to pass a qualifying exam to graduate. They need to have a certain score on a test like the PARCC, the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, the ASVAB, or the AccuPlacer. These are all different exams that they can use to qualify for graduation. Make sense? Okay. Now, graduation requirements are not the same as college requirements. Okay, what I showed you before, those are the minimum, what every child needs to graduate from high school. So they're the minimum graduation requirements. Most kids that graduate from Lawrence High School have way more credits than those minimum requirements. If you would like your child to be competitive to apply to a 4-year college, you need to keep these things in mind, okay? Senior year, most kids have already completed the great majority of their requirements. They only need 3 years of math. They only need 3 years of social studies. They only need 3 years of science. However, colleges want to see 4 years of all academic subjects. So English, social studies, science, and math. So although they've completed, I meet with a lot of kids who think, oh, I'm done with math. I hate math. I don't want to take a math my senior year. We really push them to take that additional year of math. That's the expectation. World language, they need 2 to 4 years. Okay, so the minimum to graduate is 1 year. Most colleges are happy to see 2 years, but a lot prefer to see 3. 4 is really only expected in your really super selective schools. If I have a student who, after 2 years, does not want to continue in that 3rd year, because we really push everybody to try to complete that 3rd year, but if they are really against it, I say, okay, well, what academic course do you want to double up on? Let's not fill that spot with an elective, let's fill it with something that's equally rigorous. Make sense? Other things to consider when program planning with your child, if they are looking at a certain major, you may want to pick courses that support that major to see if they're actually picking something that they're going to be successful in. And schools will look at those courses too. They're going to, if your child has dreams of being an engineer and they're getting, C minuses in math, that's probably not the best fit. Okay, so schools will like to see relative success in courses that support that major. Now, certain certain programs will need specific requirements. Okay, again, especially some more professional types of majors like engineering, they're going to want to see a higher level of math, and that might be a prerequisite to get into certain programs. Certain programs like to see, if you're going into international relations, I've seen programs, they like to see that 4 years of a language. So you want to take a look at the majors that your child is interested in and make sure that they're planning appropriately in high school. And probably the most important thing is that a college wants to see a transcript that demonstrates a good academic fit for the school, okay? Just before we got started, I was talking to somebody about AP courses, and should they take, a lot of AP courses in order to go to college? Not necessarily. You have to research the school, and you have to see, what is the expectation in that particular school. If you're applying to Harvard, yeah, they're going to want to see a lot of AP courses. But most colleges don't need to see that. Okay, they want to see a student that is applying themselves, that they have the most rigorous schedule that is appropriate for them, and that they're meeting success within that rigorous schedule. So that's going to look really differently depending on the school that your child is looking at. So the most important thing is academic fit, and having the transcript demonstrate that academic fit for the school. I'm going to stop for a second and see if you guys have any questions. Maybe you want to talk to the people at your table. And if there's questions, are we going to answer them before we move on? Is that the format?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So I'll let you guys talk for a few minutes because I don't want to, there's a lot of information that's going to be coming your way in about 5 minutes. So let's break, write down any questions that you have. We'll break for like 5 minutes and then we'll answer them before we move on. Hello? Are we ready to ask some questions? If we could stick, because there's a lot of information coming on the college process, if you have any questions specifically about the course of study, Power School, academic planning here at the high school, those would be best asked now because you might get answers to your questions, the more college-specific questions later on. Yep.
Why is GPA and class rank not on Power School from next year?
That's a great question, one that I ask all the time as well. Mr. Fiera, this one might be for you too. The question was, why isn't GPA and class rank in Power School? It is in Power School, but for some reason, you guys don't have access to it. So if you ever need it, you need to just email the counselor. They have it, at their fingertips, and they can tell you what it is. But for some reason, it's not in the student part of Power School.
The reason why it's not there to be viewed right at the end of every marking period or quarter is because our student information system, Power School, for some reason always updates the GPA and the class rank after every quarter. So let's say I'm number 25 after my freshman year, and then after the first marking period of my sophomore year, I'm 29. Well, that's not really anything to be, concerned about or get nervous about because of the way that things are graded with phys ed and health and things. It changes. The main thing is it's accumulated at the end of the year. So it's given at the end of freshman year, at the end of sophomore year, at the end of junior year, at the end of senior year. Not during the middle of the year, because in Power School, it changes all the time. And parents don't realize that even though they may have gotten all hundreds and perfect scores in their classes, they might actually go down in GPA and class rank only because the weights of their scores aren't calculated yet until the third marking period. So it's not real accurate. So that's why we've tried to work with Power School to no avail. We're not the only ones. Everybody in the country has the same problem. So we have to do it at the end of every year. Freshman, end of sophomore, end of junior, end of senior. So that explains a little bit more. Yes?
Isn't it in Naviance though?
That's what I was just going to say. So I haven't touched on Naviance yet, but I will in a little bit. But Naviance is another resource that you guys have to support your kids in the college planning process. GPAs are uploaded into Naviance during the summer. So you can find GPA and class rank there, but remember that it's only uploaded during the summer. Okay, so you won't see any changes until the September of the following year. Yeah.
I have two questions, and these are sort of bent towards nature.
Okay.
One is, you talked about the guidance process, even for an 8th grader, when you look at February, April thing. And a child meets with the guidance counselor. Is there a point at which parents can interface with the guidance counselor to help that process?
Right.
Because I was trying to repeat that question. Sometimes you can't get it.
Yeah. So this is a parent of an 8th grader, and his question was, with course planning and choosing courses for next year, is there a time when the parent can interface with the counselor to be part of that process? Because we have to schedule, each counselor has about 300 students that they have to schedule in a very short window of time. We usually don't have parents attend those meetings because they're actually very quick. They're about 10, 15 minutes long with each student. So if we had parents come, there's no way that we would get done in 10 or 15 minutes because parents usually have a lot more questions. So you can call and certainly make an appointment to meet with the counselor, but it's not something that's organized so that, the counselors meet with all the parents. But it's something that you can request, and we certainly honor it. But as far as that one appointment that happens when we go over to the middle school, we have one morning, we're there for, I think, 4 mornings. And we have to get through all of those 80, I have about 80 eighth graders, and I've got to get through all of them in a very short period of time. So you can't come to that particular meeting. I mean, you can, but it's generally not the procedure. But just call whoever your child's counselor is, call, and then I've met with parents after that time frame.
And Ms. Gonzalez,
And
if
then
I
we
can
can
pipe
always-
in. I'm sorry. A lot of times what happens is with the counselors, which is probably a little bit more efficient, is if you have questions that are specific to your situation and to your child, email, sometimes I find with those questions to the counselor, is a better way to communicate, because the phone sometimes they can't get to, but email they can try to find the time a lot more often. So emailing is a very efficient way to do it. So I would suggest that.
I do my best to answer emails within 24 hours. People can, anyone who has me can either say yay or nay if that's true, but I try to get within 24 hours. So that's a great way for you to get responses that you feel are time sensitive. But if you do want to sit down, because I know that's important, an important part as well is getting to know the counselor, feel free to reach out and we'll make an appointment with you. Okay?
Sorry, just a quick question on course studies. Will there always be summer offerings for those half-credit?
Will there always be summer offerings for the half-credit courses? No. That varies every year. I've been here 4 years, and every summer it's been different, what's been offered through summer school. So, and we generally don't know until pretty late in the spring what's being offered because of budgeting and who we have, personnel who we have available to us. So, yeah, I mean, summer school, the first priority is for kids who need remediation. So those enrichment types of courses, that's kind of an extra if we have the money and the personnel to do it. Okay? Mm-hmm.
I saw in the slide about the plan, There are two levels. I never saw that.
Acuplacer. So the qualifying exams for graduation, right now, there used to be this thing called the HESPA, which you may or may not have heard of, but that was the graduation, the exam that all high schoolers needed to pass to graduate and to get a diploma from New Jersey. Now the HESPA's gone, and we're in this transition period where they're, seeing if the PARC exam would be suitable to use as a graduation requirement. So since we're in this transition period, the New Jersey Department of Education is allowing kids to use scores from different standardized tests to use them to qualify for graduation. So currently, they can use PARC scores if they score high enough, or they can use their scores on the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, and I'm going to talk about all those later, or something called the ASVAB, which is a test that's given here at Lawrence High School next month. On February 25th, we sent a mailing out to everybody about a week or two ago. But you can register your child to take the ASVAB with us. You can just contact guidance if you need another permission slip. And the Acuplacer. So the ASVAB is a test that was developed by the U.S. military, and it is used for to be admitted into one of the military areas. But it's much more than that. It's a really great career exploration tool. If you take the test, you then get an access code to be able to go into the ASVAB program, and it gives you a ton of information about how you scored on that test. So your strengths and your interests according to how you score on this test, they match you up with potential career goals. And then that's linked to the United States Department of Labor statistics and their databases. So it's a great tool to help your child explore possible, pathways, possible career options. So there's that test. And then there's the Acuplacer, which a lot of community colleges use as their admissions test, not because you can't get in, but they need an admissions test to help them place students in courses. They want to see if you're ready for college-level English, college-level math. So the Acuplacer is used for that. So kids who have not scored a qualifying score on another exam can take the Acuplacer at Mercer County Community College. Does that answer your question? Okay.
About the PARC, my son took the PARC last spring. Will he again in 11th grade or not?
So it depends on what level math and English. So if he's an 11th grader, he will have to take the English, the 11, Park 11 English. And then the math depends on what level math he's in. If he's in Algebra 2, yes, he'll have to take the Park. If he's above or finished Algebra 2, he will not have to take the math section. Anything else?
The online courses, how are they in the GPA?
It's not. So anything that you take option 2, so option 2 is any academic work that you do that's outside the traditional Lawrence High School program. Online courses, college courses, independent study courses, things like that. If you do the option 2 paperwork and it's been approved, that course and the grade go on your transcript, so you get credit for it, but it's not calculated in your GPA.
But that was done before replacement courses couldn't be done online. Like the teacher left, and so he had to fill something in.
Okay.
There's something he needs to fill out then, because I never looked at it.
I'm not sure of the specifics of that situation.
It was a situation where there were several that were in that class, and they had to close the class down.
Okay.
It was culinary.
So that's a pretty unique situation, so maybe we can address it with you personally afterwards. But generally speaking, option 2 courses aren't calculated in the GPA, but you're right that that's pretty unique, so we'll have to address that. Okay? Yeah.
The qualifying exams, is there a spot that we can access that lists what the qualifying score is?
Yes, it's in the course of study. Yep. Yep, so it's right on our website, yep.
Yep.
And they're minimal. So, for example, like the scores for SAT reading is anything greater than a 400. So, the PSAT, if they just took the PSAT, anything more than a 22. So, they're minimal. So, this is not anything that colleges look at. This isn't anything that has to go on a transcript. This is only for the state of New Jersey to be able for you to get a diploma. So, because they want to make sure, it basically comes down to, there are schools that will pass kids all the way through who, at the end of the day, cannot read or write. So, this is a catch-all to make sure that that school isn't doing it. Well, our school, obviously not. Every school in the state of New Jersey has to abide by these guidelines.
Okay. I'm looking at the time. Can you maybe write down your question? I'll get to it afterwards. All right. So we're going to go on and talk about some kind of USA-specific college information. We have about 4,000 colleges, institutes, community colleges in the United States. There are a lot of places where kids can go and get a higher education. These are, I think, this is a pretty comprehensive list of categories of what those schools are. So you have your community colleges, which are 2-year colleges for the most part, although some of them are branching out into having offerings for like 4-year bachelor's degree offerings, but for the most part, they're 2-year colleges where students earn an associate's degree. They can finish there, or some of them use that as a stepping stone to move on to a 4-year degree, okay? So with a 2-year degree, students would earn associates, okay? That's an associate's degree. 4-year colleges earn you a bachelor's degree. Not all kids finish in 4 years, but they're designed so that you can finish in 4 years. So you've got your community colleges, you've got private community colleges, which cost more money, okay? But some say kids get a little bit more support there, and a lot of them do have dorms and things that kids can actually stay and live on campus. You've got state colleges, so we're here in New Jersey. We've got Rutgers, TC&J, Rowan, many state colleges where kids can earn their bachelor's degree. And we have out-of-state colleges that are also public. So a big one for us is Penn State. We've got a lot of kids applying to Penn State. If you apply to an out-of-state college that's public, you are generally paying a higher tuition than the kids who are going there from in-state. Oftentimes it's equivalent to maybe even a private school education that you're paying, for a public school. Depending on the state, some state colleges give preference to their in-state students. So it might be harder for our New Jersey kids to get into this public out-of-state school. So that's something to consider when looking at how competitive a school is. Okay, you also have private colleges and universities. So we have many here in the United States as well, a lot in neighboring states. There's no in-state or out-of-state tuition for private school. It's the same tuition for everybody. A lot of times they cost more. The bill appears to be higher than your state schools. But oftentimes, too, private schools have more money to give in terms of financial aid. So even though the price tag looks a lot higher, in the end, the actual bill that you're getting is quite similar, depending on the situation. Okay, so don't always let that price tag fool you, because a lot of times private school have more money to give in terms of aid, merit aid, and grant money. A lot of parents that I've talked to that are not from here are confused by what liberal arts means, what a liberal art college is, and it's kind of hard to explain, and that term has evolved a lot in the last 10 years. But generally speaking, a liberal arts college tries to give students a very broad education, but then also a major that's more, obviously more specific to what they want to do in their future. But they pride themselves in offering a broad education across different disciplines, with a focus on critical thinking and just being able to be very, what's what I'm looking for, adaptable, I guess, so that you're able to do many different kinds of jobs, in addition to having a major and then having that specialty area. There's also pre-professional colleges, and oftentimes you'll have colleges that have both liberal arts programs and professional types of programs within the same university. But pre-professional programs are things like engineering, business, nursing. Okay, these programs usually have less opportunity for kids to have that broader educational foundation, because the kids go directly into their area, their concentration or their major from the beginning, so it's highly specialized. So for example, most engineering students, they start freshman year with 4 or 5 credits in engineering. Okay, whereas if you go in as a biology major, you'll have an English comp class, you'll have a philosophy class, you'll have biology, but maybe just 1 or 2 classes, but you'll have 2 or 3 classes in other disciplines. Does that make sense? Okay, we also have what the schools that a lot of people know because they're in the media a lot and their names are very known. These are the very highly selective schools, your Harvards, your Princetons. There's about 50 colleges in the United States that get a lot of press time. And these are considered your highly selective schools. So schools that admit less than 15% of the students that apply to them, some as little as 4 or 5. Okay, so these are highly selective schools. HBCU, if you ever see that term, is a historically black college or university. So these are schools that were founded for students that are of color, but have since then really broadened their scope. So all kids, go there, but they're historically black colleges and universities. And then you've got your specialty institutions, your schools that are specifically for design or specifically for music, your conservatories, your culinary arts schools, things of that nature. Okay, I know it's a lot to take in. Okay, how to choose a college. There's a lot of things to consider. Okay, one of the most important things I think that kind of limits students and it helps you to kind of focus your search is location. Okay, how far do they want to go? How far are you willing to let them go? But location definitely matters. As far as being a competitive college applicant, finding schools that have a good academic fit is the most critical thing. I spoke before about the holistic application process, and certainly that's true. Most colleges look at things, not just academics, but extracurricular involvement, community service, athletics, all sorts of things. But really what it comes down to, the number one thing that they want to make sure is that your kid is going to be successful academically in their program. So finding a college with a good academic fit is the priority. So when you're looking at schools, how hard is it to get in? And a lot of times you can assess that by looking at a college's admission rate, and we can talk more about that in a bit. The size of the school, You know, a lot of times your bigger schools, you're going to have classes that can have 200, 300 students in lecture types of situations. Smaller schools tend to have much smaller courses, especially as freshmen and sophomores. So that might factor into your decision making. Obviously major what your child wants to do. In the United States, it's not critical that students know what they want to do when they enter college. A lot of kids go in undecided, and I think it's like 70% end up changing their mind once they're there. So colleges are set up to have that kind of flexibility. But if you have one of those kids who absolutely knows what they want to do, obviously you want to choose a school that's going to support them in their major. Campus setting is, would your kid do well in a city type of environment? Would they do better in like a small town? Or would they be okay in a rural setting? And then things like, what's available to them extracurricularly, athletics, things like that. And then of course there's cost, which is a whole other presentation. So some things for you guys to consider. Start early, okay? Generally, if you're a parent of a freshman or sophomore, now is a really good time to start talking about things. Go and visit a school, okay? Visiting campuses, visiting colleges is a great way to get your young person interested in the process, excited about the process. Again, starting early helps things later on when it becomes time to actually begin doing things. Be realistic when you're looking at colleges. Okay, remember there's those schools, those 50 schools that everybody knows the name of, but it's very hard to get into those schools. So kind of keep an open mind and look at other colleges that might be a better fit for your child. Research and know your resources. Okay, I included on this website, in this presentation, a whole list of websites that I find really useful, and they're great websites. They are very reputable. You can trust the information that you get on them. If you go online and start researching, it can be overwhelming, the amount of information that's out there, and a lot of it is not necessarily that helpful. So stick to some reputable sites that you can trust and do your research that way. By the way, I have this presentation, I have all the slides over there. There's copies in case you want them, or I can email them to you if there's not enough. You want to tier your schools based on grades. Again, the priority, when you're looking at schools, academic fit is the most important thing. So once your child takes SATs or ACTs, you look at their grades, you look at their SATs and ACTs, and then you go to each college's website, or you can find this on Naviance, to find out exactly how they fit in terms of academics. Okay, you want to look at academic fit, and then you tier the schools based on the grades that your child has and their test scores. That's where you want to choose schools that are going to be good academic fits. You can have a few that are, So you can have a few that are reach schools, so a few schools on there that might be a little bit tougher for your child to get into based on their grades and test scores, but you want the great majority to be good fit schools. So schools that your child has the GPA and has the SATs and ACTs to be successful in terms of getting it. You'll see down below the categories as far as selectivity in schools. You've got your most selective schools. These are schools with admission rates of 15% or lower. Okay, so they admit 15% or lower of the kids that apply. Those are your Ivies, your Duke, University of Chicago. Then you have highly selective schools like Emory, Georgetown, Lehigh. They'll admit 16 to 30% of the kids who apply. Then you've got your moderately selective schools. So these are the schools that a lot of our kids at Lawrence High School end up going to. Okay, we have a lot of success with kids getting into Boston University, Rutgers, University of Delaware, Towson, Syracuse, Pitt, TCNJ, all excellent, excellent schools. And then you've got your selective schools. I mean, they're not easy to get into these schools either, but they have higher admissions rate. And there's some examples of there as well. So just to give you an example of these very selective schools, these are the numbers. Very tough to get in. So you want to be thinking outside of those 50, those names that you see all the time, because you can be an absolutely perfect student, straight A's, AP courses all over the place, captain of this, president of that, community service, all of it, and they cherry pick who they want. And out of their giant pool of kids who apply, most kids look exactly like that seemingly perfect student. There's nothing wrong with your child if they don't get into this type of school. Absolutely nothing. They're great students. It's just, it's very hard. There's a lot of great kids out there, and it's really hard to get in. So kind of widen your scope when you're looking. So that's kind of what you're shooting for. It's nice that if by the end of your junior year, you've identified 10 schools or so. A couple of schools, again, that are in that reach category, the majority that are in that match, that good fit category, and then a couple also that are very likely, your safety we used to call them their safety schools, but these are your likely schools. So to have about 10 by the end of your junior year is a good plan. A little quick snippet about being well-rounded and your extracurricular profile. A lot of parents are very worried about, their child appearing to be well-rounded, like this young man over here. Colleges like lopsided as much as they like well-rounded, okay? They don't need to be involved in multiple activities. If your child is really, really, really good at one thing, or really just interested in, one or two things, that's okay. Colleges just want to see that they're involved in something, that they want to give back to their community somehow, that they want to bring in kids that are going to add to the fabric of their community in some way. They don't want kids who are going to sit in their room playing video games all day and not add to that culture on the community campus. Mr. Fiera made a really good point earlier about community service. Do you want to say something, Sam? Or
when I was a counselor at a different school, Southern Regional, we had a valedictorian who was, since the womb, I think, because the mother was a graduate of Notre Dame, he wanted to go nowhere else in his life but Notre Dame, nowhere else. So, he had done everything he had possibly could do to get into Notre Dame as a valedictorian, everything he could have possibly done, and the rejection letter came. He was not accepted into Notre Dame. And it crushed him because he couldn't understand why. Meanwhile, he did get accepted to Harvard, he did get accepted to Stanford, and he did get accepted to, I believe it was Cornell. So what the difference was, I think, what he felt the difference was, and it started to come out later on in articles, and I just got an article today on these highly competitive colleges. How are you going to distinguish who you're going to pick into your college? And the number one reason that these college admissions people gave were all these kids look alike in the fact that they're all the valedictorians, they're all in the top 10%, they all are heavily involved in clubs and activities. Who's to separate them? The number one thing is service before self, which means what are they going to do that's going to show not just their last year, but their many years leading up to their graduation. What have they done to give to their community, to give back to people, to give, and to be selfless, community service? And you're asking yourself, why would a college really care all that much? Well, think about it. They care because when they're going to take that kid, that student, they have endowments from here till tomorrow. How do you think they have those endowments? Those students that are givers will graduate and give back to them into their endowments. So that is the number one reason. So I tell them, yes, you're doing everything you should, but don't just be a student all the time, morning, noon, and night. Because if you're wanting to go to these highly selective colleges, Make sure that you're well-rounded in the areas, not just of sports and activities and bands. That's good. You want that. But you want your community service of being a giver. You want to volunteer. You want to make this part of your persona, because eventually that's going to separate you from someone else. The more, the better. So that's just some food for thought.
The guidance counselors help students kind of help match, right? Community service activities. I mean, what are the resources you're taking to find?
Sure. I mean, one thing that I wanted to say about community service is that it shouldn't be just about accruing hours, okay? Because doing something just as a resume patter is pretty transparent when it comes to applying to colleges, you know, highly selective or not. It should be attached to something that the student is genuinely interested in. That when they talk about it in their essay or in an interview or whatever it might be, that it's going to come across as genuine and not just something that they do for the sake of doing. So helping your child find that, you know, that thing, whatever it is, that they enjoy, will go a long way. Also, what they look for in terms of service, but also just extracurricular involvement, is commitment. So making sure that, you know, freshman year is a good time, 8th grade, 9th grade is a good time to kind of dabble in a few different things and figure out what is it that I want to really commit myself to. It doesn't have to be their passion. You know, not many 15-year-olds have a passion. They don't know what that is yet. But something that they feel like they can commit to for 3 or 4 years. So again, exploring 8th grade, 9th grade, and then kind of setting their mind to commit to something throughout, with the idea that by the time they're seniors, you know, they're either going to flourish in that particular thing, or maybe even have some leadership skills emerge because of their commitment in that particular thing. They don't have to be president. They don't have to have that, you know, that name. But certainly, if you're involved in something with some depth and commitment, leadership kind of emerges naturally. So that's something to think about. But in terms of your question, we can certainly help. You know, there's certainly places within the community that we know take our kids as far as service. So just contact guidance and we can point you in the right direction. Okay? There's like animal shelters, there's a couple different, if your child is interested more in like the biological sciences, there are certainly areas that we can point them to. And then, of course, yeah, we have several service clubs within the school that are fabulous. Operation Smile, Interact, Students Helping Honduras. So there's definitely some really meaningful experiences that they can commit to within the school, and everything's already organized for them. So that counts. You know, it's not just service outside on your own, find it yourself, but getting involved in the activities that we have here on campus. Yeah? Okay, so this is what colleges look for. Okay, when you apply, when a student applies to college, there's certain colleges that are more, you know, straightforward. They just want to see your how you do in your classes, your transcript, and your SATs, and that's basically it. Okay, Rutgers is one of them. I feel they asked for an essay, but I don't really believe that anyone reads it. It's really just based on numbers. But most colleges do follow a more holistic process, and they look at all of these things. They want to see that senior year schedule be rigorous. Again, it can if you're aiming for those more selective schools, it should contain honors AP courses. But a lot of our kids that go to college have never taken an honors or AP course, so it's not necessary. There's plenty of great colleges out there where you don't need that level of rigor, and you can still go and be successful. Okay, but a rigorous schedule meaning rigorous for your child, whatever that looks like. But you want academic courses, not just all fluff courses. You definitely don't want an out to lunch and a study hall and 5 electives. Admission test scores, so I'm going to talk about SATs and ACTs in a minute. Obviously your grades, they want to see relative success in the rigorous course load, the most rigorous course load you can handle. Essays and writing samples. Okay, so almost every college application will contain at least one essay. We do give support here at the high school for kids to write their essays. Okay, there's different things that they can do. They do a unit in English and English 3 during their junior year, but then we also offer other services. As far as the essay goes, in case any of you have a older student, the most important thing of that essay is that it's a well-written piece of writing. So cohesive, coherent, strong. That's the most, a lot of kids get very overly concerned about what they're going to write about the hook, about, trying to wow somebody, and they just want to know that they write well. You have to write a lot in college, and if there's a typo in that essay, they're going into the deny pile. So a well-written piece of writing, and they want nice kids. They want to see, they want a piece of writing that's genuine. I tell kids, write about something that you know well. Don't try to come off as something that you're not, because that ends up falling flat. So good piece of writing, strong piece of writing, and just sound nice. Sound like a genuine, authentic person, and that usually goes fine. Community service, as we talked about. I write a recommendation letter for every child that is applying to a four-year college, and then they must ask 2 teachers for recommendation letters as well. You want to ask a teacher that can write a good recommendation letter for you, obviously. So when I meet with my juniors, I say, pick your teacher now. Who in your junior year do you want to ask to write your recommendation letter and be really great in that class for the remainder of the year? They can ask somebody from sophomore year. That's okay as well. They can ask someone from senior year, but I generally like my kids to ask 2 teachers from their junior year, and then if they're going to ask additional people, they can. But we need 2 from academic teachers, so not elective teachers, but core courses. Some schools offer interviews. Okay, the more selective schools will offer one, usually with an alumni, not on the campus. But if they offer one, definitely take that opportunity. And also if the child has any special talents. So schools look for kids who are going to add to the musical communities on their campus, or the artistic communities, or the athletic communities. So if your child has a special talent, obviously that's a plus as well. Also any work experience. So actual work experience, McDonald's, whatever it might be, that's part of what they look for, but also internships, anything like that they've had experience in potentially an area that they want to go into. So most colleges, it's kind of like an evaluation checklist that they go through, and these are the 5 things that they rate, and basically they come up with a number. It's like a rubric that they follow. And so they look at the child's transcript, they're looking for academic fit within the transcript, they're reading the recommendation letters, and they're saying, what do the people that know your child best, what are they saying about them? They read the essay, and this is your child's opportunity to say what they want to say about themselves. They're looking at their extracurricular profile, and they're trying to figure out how is this person going to add to our community if we bring them on to our campus. And then finally, their testing profile. And they're hoping, by looking at their testing profile, they want to see that it supports what they see on their transcript. But by far, the more important thing in terms of academic profile are the grades, the academic history. That surpasses the testing profile. I think I went over all of this already. One more thing, demonstrated interest. I think that's a very USA-specific thing as well. A lot of colleges, they track demonstrated interest. Okay, they track to see how likely is this student going to say yes if we admit them. Because part of what goes into the rankings, the US report, report for the college rankings, all the different college ranking systems, is their matriculation rates. And if they offer X amount of spots, how many of those kids actually come and say yes? So how many kids do they yield? And that's part of the formula that goes into the ratings. So they do track demonstrated interest, and and the student can demonstrate interest by visiting the campus. When that admissions counselor comes to Lawrence High School, September, October, November, December, every day we have colleges coming to visit our school, and kids can sign up to meet with the admissions counselor. So they track to see who came to that visit. If you email the admissions counselor, any of those things, those are ways that you can demonstrate interest in a school, and that's tracked by a lot of schools, and that goes into their decision making. If an admissions counselor does come to Lawrence High School, please make sure that, and then your child, you know that your child is applying to that school, please make sure that they come, because that's an important message. Yep.
Is there a list of who comes to the school? school, publish someone who has come to the school?
I don't think we have a list of who has come to the school, but in Naviance, you see who's coming, and that's where you sign up. So you can access Naviance and see, like right now no one's coming because everyone's home reading applications. This is like the reading period in college. Everyone's applied or is in the process of applying, and all the admissions counselors are reading applications all day long. That's their job. So the visiting period, the recruiting period, is September, October, November, December.
You don't keep a list of
Who's coming? Who's come? I can ask Ms. We have a secretary in the guidance who is in charge of that. I can see if she's kept a list. She's very organized, so she probably of who's come before. Okay, I know that they can sign up and see who's coming, but right now when you go into Naviance, it says no college visits scheduled. But we'll look. We'll take a look. Okay, last thing I want to say too is a lot of more selective colleges have an additional essay where they want the student to express fit. Again, why do you see yourself here? Why have you picked our school? What will you add to our class of 2020, whatever it might be? That's a really, really important essay. And if a college has that essay is almost more important than the regular personal statement essay. Because they want to know that the student has taken the time to research the school and that they're applying for the right reasons, not just because, you know, they know the name or their best friend's applying there, whatever it might be. Application itself, there are still paper applications out there. If you believe it, they still exist. But obviously, if you can apply electronically, that's the best. So that's what we recommend. Here we have something called the Common Application. Hundreds of colleges subscribe to the Common Application. You fill out the Common App, you can apply to, you know, whatever colleges subscribe to it, which are plenty. Generally, if a kid's applying to 10 colleges, 6 or 7 of them are going to be on the Common App, so it's definitely worth their while. Requirements in terms of the actual application, all those things that they get evaluated on, they're all going to go into the application itself. Okay? Here in guidance, we send recommendation letters and transcripts for students, but you guys are responsible for submitting everything else. You submit the actual application, the test scores, your extracurricular involvement goes in the application itself as well, but we'll send the recommendations and transcripts on your behalf. Okay, there's I know a lot of confusion regarding all the different deadlines that we have. Regular decision is just your normal deadline. Okay, that's the last deadline where kids can apply to schools. You'll see priority deadlines on some schools' websites, and that means that if you have a priority deadline, it is highly recommended that you apply during that time. You're given, obviously, that application is given priority. Applications that come afterwards are generally read during a later pool. Rolling admissions is applications are being read as they come in. An office is receiving applications, they're reading them and they're accepting students as those applications come in, and then when they finish their class, when the class is full, they stop reading them. And you don't know when that's going to happen. So again, getting the application in early is your best bet. Early decision, early action, single choice early action, these are the ones that I think there's the most confusion about. Sometimes you'll see a college that has an early decision deadline. Generally, they're around November 1st, November 15th, December 1st sometimes. If you apply to a college early decision, you are telling the college, I'm applying to you now. If you admit me, I will come to you, no matter what. Okay, so it's a binding commitment that you're making. It's kind of like a marriage proposal. I love you, you're my favorite college, I will be with you forever if you accept me now. So that's early decision. Early action also has that early deadline, but there's no commitment. So you get an early decision from the school. The school reads the application early and usually tells you by like the holidays, end of the year time, whether you're in or not, but there's no actual commitment. Single choice early action or restricted early action, again, is an early application, but there's no commitment there either. Trying to remember what the exact difference is. I should know this. I think you have to pull all of your other applications. You're allowed to apply to other early programs, but no early decision programs. And then once you get in, you got to pull all of your other applications. Okay, there's two tests that you can use as far as college admissions goes, the SAT and the ACT. More and more schools are going test optional, meaning that they don't require either. If you are choosing a test optional school, you want to make sure that you're demonstrating good academic fit with the transcript. Okay, you don't want to apply to a test optional school and not submit scores if your transcript isn't demonstrating that you're a good academic fit, because chances of you getting in are not good. But the SAT, ACT are accepted by, if a college requires a test, either one is fine. There's not one that's preferred, they're both fine to take. The general timeline with regard to taking tests, we give the PSAT here in the fall, in October, and sophomores are able to take it if you sign them up to take it. There is a charge for that. It's between $10 and $15, I can't remember. So sophomores can take the PSAT, which is just practice. Juniors are required to take the PSAT in October, okay, and we pay for them since it's required. Generally speaking, most kids take their first official standardized test in the spring of their junior year, although there's quite a few of them that start earlier than that and take it in the fall of their junior year. So somewhere between fall, winter, junior year, we definitely want most kids to have taken at least one test. Okay? And then if they need to do additional test prep over the summer between their junior and senior year, they have 2 months to kind of hit it hard and practice, and then take another test in the fall of their senior year. I usually tell my kids take both ACT and SAT, see which one they like better, because they are different tests, and then choose the one that they want to focus on, practice, practice, practice over the summer, take it again in September, October. If you're still not happy, take it one more time, and then be done with it. Okay, you generally don't see a big improvement in test scores after try 3. 2 usually does it for most kids. Some go for a 3rd, and you'll still see an improvement. If you go more than 3 times, it's not a good use of time. So the SAT has been redesigned, and I won't go into all the details about the difference between the old SAT and the new SAT. I do have a handout out there for those of you who are interested in reading more about it. But the new SAT, these are the sections, and the essay is now optional. I don't know, the only college that I know that requires the essay right now is Princeton. I don't think it's required by any other school in New Jersey. So most schools are not using the essay on the redesigned SAT. But the scoring is still going to be the same, out of 800 for the reading and writing, and out of 800 for the math. Now, College Board, which are the designers of the SAT, they're really trying to improve their accessibility and making test prep available to all students, not just the ones who could afford $1,500. So you can get awesome test prep through Khan Academy now. If you go to the College Board website, all the test prep that you want for absolutely free. Okay, so this is a really great feature that they're now offering students. Some more information about the SAT. These are your test dates for the spring. So you want to make sure that you register by the deadlines, or else there's additional fees. And they don't have the fall dates set up yet, but we'll have that soon. So if you have a junior, they should definitely sign up for one of these. Okay, if you have kids that are not junior year yet, it's up to you whether you want them to experience the SAT. They certainly can sign up. I don't recommend it for freshmen, but there are some sophomores who are really, high-achieving kids who want to have a go at it, and that's fine. If your child is not yet in Algebra 2, don't bother, because there's Algebra 2 on the test. Some schools will require subject tests, usually very highly selective schools, okay? But you want to make sure that when you register for the SAT, that you're registering for the regular SAT, not the subject test SATs, unless that's what you want to do. Subject tests are in specific subjects. So you might have like a math subject test, or a physics subject test, or a US history subject test. So when I worked at University of Pennsylvania, they required 2 subject tests in addition to the SAT. Most schools won't require that though. But I have had kids register for the wrong ones by accident. Where do you register for the tests? In at College Board. So if you collegeboard.org, yep, that's how you register for the SAT. And then you have the ACT, which generally is a more achievement-oriented test, okay? I think that the redesigned SAT is also, they're claiming to be a little bit more achievement-oriented as well. But this historically has been known as it's more like the type of test that your kids are used to taking, okay? Whereas the SAT, the types of questions that are being asked are trickier. They're not really used to that type of questioning. This is more kids say it's more typical of the types of questions, types of tests that they're used to. So this is another option with regard to admissions tests, college tests. The difference here is that there is a science section, whereas the SAT doesn't have a science section. The essay is also optional, although it is very strongly recommended that they take it. Because most colleges, when they take the ACT, they want to see the essay. Okay, so it's optional for the SAT, for the new SAT, and it doesn't seem like colleges are requiring it. But it is required by colleges if they're taking the ACT. Make sense? So make sure that you sign up for the plus writing one. Now, if you are applying to a college that does require subject tests, a lot of colleges will take the ACT instead of subject tests. So again, when I worked at Penn, if a student had the ACT, they didn't need to submit 2 subject tests. This was enough. I know, it's a lot of information, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, did you get the PSAT score report? You got it? It's pretty detailed on where they did well and where they didn't do well. Is it accurate? It depends on really where your child is academically. Again, if they haven't taken algebra, well, the PSAT 10, if they take it as a 10th grader, it's normed differently. It's normed with other sophomores. So, it does take that into account a little bit. But academically, if they haven't taken Algebra 2 yet, they're missing a lot. So it's definitely more accurate taken junior year, sure. These are your dates for the ACT. If you have a child that you hope is athletically eligible to play Division I or Division II sports in in college, please talk to your counselor about that, because they kind of fall in a different category and it's very complicated, and you want to start early in terms of making sure that they are athletically eligible. Freshman, sophomore year, you should be having a conversation not just with your child's counselor, but also with the coach in the sport that they want to, play at the college level. NCAA Clearinghouse is just the organization that basically oversees that whole process, and you have to start an application with them by junior year. Okay, I know I've said a lot, so I just want to emphasize that you're not in this alone. Each of you will have a counselor at the high school. There are 4 of us. Get everybody's names here. Okay, so there's 4 of us that do this job, and we're here to help you every step of the way. We meet with your child, freshman and sophomore year, not as much as we would like, unfortunately, unless they come to us with questions. In terms of college planning, we meet with them obviously for program planning, academic planning. But junior year, we meet with them presentation style to give them a ton of information about college. Then we also meet with them one-on-one. We do a junior college planning night for parents as well, usually in the spring, April time. So we're here for you guys to help you through this process. There's myself. Those are my last names. You know, if you fall into that category, I'm your child's counselor. We've got Mrs. Welsh, Mr. D'Angelo, Mrs. Coben. So we're here as your resource. Okay, so I know I'm trying to squeeze everything in, but know that if you have questions, you have people here to help you out. So also in terms of evening programs for you guys, I mentioned junior year, you have your parent college night. You'll have another one at the fall of senior year so that we can make sure that you know exactly what's going on, what you need to be doing. And there's also a financial aid night, because I haven't even touched on that whole topic, but there's a whole night on financial aid, again, during your child's senior year. So you're going to get a lot of information in a very timely way, okay, when you most need it. Naviance Family Connection. We're not going to even go into that right now, but if you don't have access to Naviance and you want access to Naviance, email your child's counselor tomorrow. Okay, they can easily hook you up. All you need is an email, they'll give you a password, and then you'll have access to that account. You can find the Naviance link on the high school's guidance page. It's right there for you. On Naviance, you can research. It's a tool where you can research colleges. You can find exact academic fits as far as admission rates go. Hold on one sec. Okay, so you can start finding colleges that you feel would be good for your child. You can help them in that search process. There's search engines that you can use that will help you identify schools that meet the criteria that you have in terms of location, in terms of majors, in terms of you know, the size of the school, all sorts of different criteria. And what's nice too is you can click on something that's called the scatter plot. You'll see next to each college, if you put it under your list of schools that you're interested in, there's a graph, and you can click on the graph, and then you can see where your child falls in terms of their competitiveness for that particular school. And this is data that's been taken from all the kids in Lawrence High School who have applied to that school within the last 6 years, 6 or 7 years, I think the data goes back. So you'll be able to see, okay, based on my child's GPA and based on how they did on the PSAT or the SAT or the ACT, you know, how likely are they to get into this particular college? So for this one, you have TC&J. Okay, all the kids that are red squares did not get into TC&J. Again, this is the last 6 or 7 years. All the green squares, the red X's did not get in, the green squares got in. Your child would be the circle, the red circle. So how likely is it that Ms. Linda Lawrence, who's not a real person, gets into TC&J? Not likely, right? So it's a really great tool for you to start seeing, okay, you know, is this a good academic fit for my child? So I really recommend that if you don't have access already, that you contact your counselor tomorrow, and then they can get you hooked up. Your child might have they have access, but they may not remember their password, but you can go home tonight and get access from your child if you'd like. From Lawrence High School. From Lawrence High School. So if you go, again, if you're in Naviance and you click on the actual school and go to the tab that says admission, you're going to get the data from the college, what their average SATs, what their average GPA is to get in. However, if you go to the scatter plot, you're going to see what the average from Lawrence High School is. So of the kids that applied, so not just the data that the school's giving out as far as you know, what they're promoting, what they're saying, but real life stuff. Okay, they're saying that they're accepting kids with a 3.7, but if you actually look over here, you're seeing that that's not actually true. It's either more competitive or maybe less competitive depending on the data that we've derived. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to stop just because I'm way over time. You guys have been great. Are there any questions that I can answer? I understand if people have to get up and go because it is late, but I'm happy to stay a little bit and answer questions if there is anything that you want to ask. Yeah.
What are the things included in the transcript?
Sure. So what's included in a transcript? So a transcript is a one-page document that has 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 4 boxes. In each box, there lists the courses that the child has taken during that year, the grade that they earned, and the credit that they earned for that course. At the bottom, there is GPA, and there's class rank. GPA is determined by the grades that they earned in the course and the credit, the credit that that course bared, and there's also a weighting to the GPA. So our class rank and our GPAs are weighted depending on the level of the course. So there's college prep weighting, honors level weighting, AP level weighting. So that also goes into the calculations for GPA and class rank. And there's a description, detailed description on how all of that in the course of study, how we calculate GPA, the weighting system, all of that. The course of study, if you go to the Lawrence Township Public School website and go to Lawrence High School and go to guidance, you'll have the course of studies there.
Can we get a copy of it?
Of course, yeah. Just email your counselor and they can give you a copy of the transcript. It's an unofficial copy, but you can certainly have a copy.
The community service, is that a minimum requirement
For graduation, you mean? Or, sorry, there's no requirement. So in a college will never, that I know of, will not have a community service requirement for admission. It'll just be part of the student's extracurricular profile. So there's no amount of hours that are needed, nothing like that. There's kids that get admitted to college all the time with 0 community service hours. I think it's something that can set your child apart if they're doing something meaningfully that they care about, but it's certainly not, it's not a requirement. And we don't, and some people ask too, do we keep track of hours in guidance? And we don't. When it comes time for your child to apply to college, they tell us what they've been involved in, and then we verify things here and there. I don't verify everything because I don't have the time, but we'll verify things here and there just to make sure, just kind of auditing, just to make sure kids are being honest. And then we confirm what your child has told us in our recommendation letter. Okay? Yep. Yep.
Important gym.
So there is a lot of schools, especially private schools, they like to say that they have a very geographically diverse student body. So if you're from New Jersey and you apply to a school in Indiana, that's good. That actually improves your candidacy to get into that school, because we don't have many kids from New Jersey that apply to schools in Indiana. So they probably want to bring in kids from our state to, again, add to the geographic diversity of their college. They'd like to say, we have students from all 50 states. That's just something that, sounds good. So it actually does help. Not necessarily, to apply to Pennsylvania or New York or, our neighboring states that they do get a lot of applicants from Jersey, but certainly anything in the middle, Jersey kids like to stay in the Northeast. They like to be able to take 95 and go to college in one of the colleges that they like the water. I don't know what it is, but if they're willing to go a little bit west, their chances of getting in actually improve. Yeah.
Given the amount of what you were saying earlier, it's a relatively small amount of time that you spend with a student, what's the best way, the most effective way for a student to map out their course at each grade? So, in other words, it sounds from what you're saying like someone has to have a lot of information in that 9 or 10 minutes of guidance. So how does that work?
So we present the information to each student, and then as an 8th grade parent, you get that information during the evening program that's put on by Mr. Fiera and all the supervisors of the different departments. So you're going to have an evening presentation that outlines the course of study. And then we, as a guidance department, go to the 8th grade and we present the course of study to the 8th graders. Then they each get a book, and we say, go home, talk to your parents, because you'll get the presentation the same day that we give the presentation to your kids. Go home, map it out, figure out what you want to do. And it's an open dialogue. You know, you do course selections in February, you have time to change your mind all the way through June. So you make your initial course requests, but then we can talk as many times as you need to talk. At the 8th grade level, I'm talking to the parents because I'm not really talking to the 8th grader yet because they're not in front of me. But come 9th, 10th, 11th grade, you know, I meet with students all the time to change their course request depending on where things end up going. So the actual meeting to put in the course request is short, but subsequent meetings afterwards tend to be very long. Does that make sense? Okay. It's just getting in those initial course requests so that the district can plan for personnel and scheduling and those logistical things. That's why we have to get everyone in by April. But the conversation is ongoing, and changes definitely are made. Okay?
All right. I just wanted to, well, first, let's thank Mrs. Gonzalez for that great presentation. All right. That was a lot of energy that she put into that, and it was awesome. I'm going to stay, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions afterwards. I'll stay here. Okay, we're going to wrap things up. Feel free to help yourself to a water, a beverage, a cookie, and I will be coming around. And if you want to come up to me or any one of us, we can answer any questions you might have. Most important thing I would say for me as a parent to tell you, get on Naviance. Who is on it right now? Okay, am I right? It's important to get on Naviance? Naviance is your #1 tool for college. It has helped me tremendously as a parent, so I think it will help you too. So email your counselor and get on Naviance ASAP. Everyone goes to bed, you get on that computer, you just start looking around, you'll be addicted. Thank you.